Good morning. I'm back. So we are going to do some review this morning of exponents. Okay, I've got some problems on the board, and I'm asking you to do some problems today. There might seem like a lot of problems, but they should be pretty quick because the math that is involved is very, very simple once you remember the process. So the math is just basic adding, subtracting, and multiplying. All right, so let's take a look at some examples. Okay, here I've got when we multiply either numbers or variables that have exponents, we add the exponents. We did this a lot in class, so hopefully this is just review. That this is like 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 is 3 to the 6th, right? So if we wrote them all out, we would know that these 2 3s times these 4 3s end up being these 6 3s all times each other. Does that make sense? Okay. So it's the same thing with variables. So a to the 5th times a to the 9th is a to the 14th. This would be a times 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 a equals a times a, or the 14 of them all lined up, a to the 14th. Okay? Let's take a look at this example. I've got 3ab squared times 5a to the 3rd b to the 7th. Now let's remember our invisibility rule. So what invisible number do you see that would be useful? I see an invisible 1 right there, right? An invisible a to the 1st. So we've really got 3a to the 1st, b squared times 5a to the 3rd, b to the 7th. So I'm going to go one by one, matching up what matches. So I'm going to take the numbers. 3 times 5. I'm going to multiply the numbers times each other, the a's times each other, and the b's times each other. So I've got 3 times 5 is 15. A to the 1st times a to the 3rd is a to the 4th. B squared times b to the 7th is b to the 9th. Okay? So there's a whole page of problems just like this. And I did all of the odds on every page that I'm giving you so you can see all of my examples. Okay? So check those out, and then you do all the evens. Hopefully it will be pretty, it might take you the full, half hour, 35 minutes, but check it out. All right, so let's take a look at this example here. If we raise something to a power, either a number or a variable that already has a power or an exponent to an exponent, then we find out that this is the same as 3 to the 3rd times 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 3 to the 3rd. So if I wrote all those out, 3 to the 3rd 5 times, then I would end up, if I added the exponents, I'd do 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3, right? Or 15. So we start to find out, and we've reviewed this before, we've done this, that 3 to the 3rd to the 5th tells us to multiply those exponents. So 3 to the 3rd to the 5th is 3 to the 15th. Same thing with variables. A to the 4th to the 3rd power, this would be a to the 4th times a to the 4th times a to the 4th. If I were adding the exponents, I'd do 4 plus 4 plus 4, and that would be a to the 12th, or 4 times 3. Okay, so let's take a look at what if we've got something a little bit bigger in our in the parentheses to a power. So this, we've got another invisible exponent here. Let's show it. We've got an invisible 1 right there. And really this exponent, this 4 on the outside, means that we would have 3a squared b to the 3rd times 3a squared b to the 3rd times 3a squared b to the 3rd times 3a squared b to the 3rd. So we'd have those 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 4 times, right? A squared times a squared times a squared times a squared, b to the 3rd times b to the 3rd, b to the 3rd. So we can look at them all separately and think that this exponent here really applies to each of these exponents. So 3 to the 1st to the 4th power is 81, right? 3 to the 4th. A squared to the 4th power is a to the 8th. And b to the 3rd to the 4th power is b to the 12th. Okay. Let's take a look at what happens when we do this we have some fractions here. Okay, so now we're dividing. So fractions, oh, I see I've got 10a squared over 20a. I'm going to put in my invisible exponent of 1 there. And now I'm thinking about reducing this fraction, simplifying fractions. I'm going to start with the, just like I did over on these problems, I'm going to start with the numbers and then start with the matching variables. So 10 and 20 reduce to 1 and 2, divide by 10, divide by 10. Recall that we divide the numerator and denominator by the same thing, the same number. And then a squared over a. Well, that's very much like a squared, a times a over a, and one pair of those cancel. So recall that I would cross out both of them. We're going to subtract those exponents. That's what's ultimately going to happen. And I'm going to have an a to the first in the numerator up there. So usually especially if it gets bigger and complicated, I circle what is left over. And in this case, I've got a over 2. Okay. Let's reduce this next one. All right, so I see 12, a to the third, b to the fifth, over 15, a squared, b to the seventh. So I'm going to start by reducing the numbers. Looks like I could divide both of these by 3. So 12 divided by 3 is 4. 15 divided by 3 is 5. All right, I've got a to the third over a squared. I'm going to cross them both out. So I'm not going to cross out just the exponents. I'm going to cross the whole thing out. 3 minus 2 is 1, so I'm going to have this a to the first left where the larger one is. And then I have b to the fifth over b to the seventh. If I wrote them all out, 5 b's on the top, 7 b's in the denominator on the bottom, 5 pairs of them would cancel, and I'd be left with 2 in the denominator. So again, I'm going to cross them both out, and I'm going to put a b squared down here. So it looks like I've got 5 and a b squared left, and 4 and a to the first. So I come over to my open fraction line over here, and I'm going to put in my 4a and 5b squared. And I can tell that I'm done because none of this will reduce. If I have a's left in the numerator and in the denominator, then I haven't reduced enough, right? If the number's still reduced, then I haven't reduced enough. Okay, so give this a try. Please check in with me if you need any support. I'm sorry this video was so long, but it's an important review, and I will talk to you later. Bye.